the cost is. How do we know what they're charging to have that burial? Where if it comes through the clerk's office, we know what they're charging. And at that point, because of what happened, I just have a problem with it.
It would be in the contract.
It would be in the
That
contract,
they
but
would have the contract
if-
to let us know of any changes in.
But if they go and say, oh, because it's 315, it's gonna cost you more money in that, or this is gonna be done on a Saturday, it's gonna cost you.
If we attach in accordance with our fee schedule slate, we approved on
Previous resolution.
2-3-4 months ago, we approved.
But how
To
do
that,
they-
any
how-
changes to it, the board
how
must be
How does
notified.
that person know, how does the family know of the deceased, know what we signed?
And it's part of the ordinance, anytime you go to pull that out, to tell them who they need to call, your fee schedule's on it, if you will. I guess is what I would,
That's one way.
Yeah.
But the other side, I knew what Doug's asking. If I'm the person
Yeah.
calling.
Oh, I know.
And I don't know what your fee schedule is, or go look at your website, how would I know
Yeah.
they're charging me the right amount?
Mhm.
And I don't know how we would police that other than not do this.
That's the way yeah.
That, from that question, unless Jeff has another thought on it. Because there will be calls we don't know.
Right,
You could require Bostwick to report when they file
The charges.
the clerk's office with a completed signed burial permit each time. You could require them to report the cost that they charged. And if that changes, then,
No.
that would be one way. Obviously, if they're going to be saying 300 to you and saying 400 to the family, there'll be a special place for those people. But, the presumption is they wouldn't be doing that. They'll risk losing.
I'm not saying they would, it's just.
But no,
But
right.
I know
But
what
if
the
they-
contract we signed, they come back and there we are.
If you could have them report it, you could,
they're already given us the
Ask the-
certificate, so.
you could ask the funeral homes to periodically report, or just, I'm sure they're cost conscious if they suddenly are being told it's gonna be more, contact the township.
How much, on another way, how much time does this take? Kathy?
How much time does it take?
Yeah, how many burials are there a year out? You've been acting here.
Well, since I came in here, there's probably, I'm gonna say 20.
20? Okay, and out of the 20, for one burial, how much time does it take to write the check and receive that? How much time are we saving you?
Well, say, what, 20 minutes maybe,
Okay.
to get, 20, yeah, when you think about the process of it coming in, checking it out, getting it in the computer, cleaning it up.
Yes. We had some time ago, we went through this whole discussion about Bostwick and why we went with Bostwick. And I believe at that time, one of the reasons you suggested that was they do this service for a number of other townships and the city, yada, yada. Is this the procedure that most other townships follow, where the township or the city is out of the loop, it's between the funeral home or the
Yes.
family and the grave digger?
Yes, there,
And I just don't know, I see your point, but why do we want to be involved in this? I mean, they provide a service, and could they attempt to rip off the bereaved?
I'm not saying they would. I'm not. I'm just going by what happened that morning.
We could put, as Jeff said, a note at the end of this next to last paragraph. They have signed burial permits, which they do have to get back to us, and charges for services. Make that a requirement. You see a problem with that,
Sure.
Kevin?
To require Bostwick to provide an invoice along with the burial permit?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I understand Doug's point. This kind of has ballooned into completely losing control for a service that we could be providing our residents. Now we've lost control of how much it's gonna cost as well. It's a little disappointing, I guess.
Well, I think if we put something in there, though, they provide that cost back, it gives us a way to look at that on rates. That's the one way we have to see what that is.
But there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, that's what it is. That's what the charge says.
But they've contracted with us for rates to start with. Right, isn't that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so because of that, at least we can compare and say, this is in the range, what we contracted.
Yeah, they don't have the authority to go dig a grave, but for your authorizing them to do that with that separate motion that you, or resolution that you adopted before. So they can't just go out and start digging out.
And realistically, they can't, they can
They were
attempt to
involved,
charge
you
whatever
could
they
say.
want, but they're really only approved to charge X under our contract as well. By them giving us a copy of their invoice at the time they submit the signed burial permit,
You sure they're on the straight and
I think it covers both bases.
As I say, sign burial permit and charges to be recorded in the clerk's office cemetery, but and charges. Does that help, Doug? Gets a piece of it in there? Gets a piece of it in there.
So, like I say, 4 hours over the course of a year is a lot of time.
Do we want to modify this or not? Otherwise, we do have a motion, and we have a second on it. We want to put and charges in there?
Take a vote. I would agree to the addition of, require Boswick to provide some sort of invoice that shows the charges they reflected to their funeral home or family when they submit the signed burial words to be approved by council.
Second to that? You're making that as a motion? It's hard to make
You
a motion.
supported it originally, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yes, I support it.
That would be your.
So would you support adding that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we support that change, both the motion.
Correct.
Okay, in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Two opposed.
Two, yes. Thank you. The next one should be easy, but this is a 2014-03. There's just a requirement by the state, if we move the first board review date different than the state specifies, we have to have a resolution saying that. That's all this allows, is that our first meeting will be March 12th. I see my own notes. March 12th. So that's all this is about. I made it bold glasses. So I just need a motion to accept this one, our 2014-03.
Motion to approve resolution 2014-3, to move the date of the board of review to Wednesday, March 12th, 2014.
Seconded by
Support.
Scott. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next one is our FOLA, FOIA request fee schedule. Kathy?
This is a resolution, and there should be a correction on the top for 2014. To establish a scheduled record for the township of the procedure of a fee for FOIA request, which is recommended by the MTA that the township have established a cost schedule. So,
This adheres to the, there's the legal requirement, it can't be more than the cost of the
right,
lowest person, yada, yada, that pay scale.
Right,
And
the
that number you come up with is that
The actual
13, 18 is that a fully broken cost?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Hourly wage, I believe.
So it's straight wage, not fully burdened.
No, this is, the hourly wage is determined by the least, the lowest paid of the facility.
Lowest paid in the facility at their hourly rate.
Shouldn't it be they're fully burdened? I mean, I don't care.
You know, that
It would be
the
nice, but
state
no, the
recommends
state
that,
doesn't
no,
want you to do that.
Doesn't it?
The state
Okay.
recommends it.
Fine. I went for you.
It just gives us a resolution to document what that is, so that public knowledge of what our schedule is.
Okay.
I have
You have a question, Tom?
I guess I'm a little, do most townships do this? Because really, when you think about it, the paper's already paid by the township people. The toner, the copy, the time, all of this is already
They're
paid by
They're
them.
paid by the taxpayers.
Right.
You as the individual are asking for it, taking away from the taxpayers. That's why,
That's the reason?
Yeah.
Okay.
does that make sense why you would charge an individual
Yeah.
compared to the taxpayers?
Yeah, because it seems like it's already being paid for, we're kind of
It,
double
it,
dipping, but.
it is, but you're asking for additional services. More above and beyond what everyone else
And I
is
believe a
getting.
lot of the townships have a documented procedure.
That was my
This-
question.
Yeah, I consulted with East Bay and Guthrie.
And they do this too? Okay.
So do I have a motion to accept this?
Go on.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions?
Right now on the worksheet page, if you will, of this, there's a lot of blanks for postage and things of that nature.
Yes.
Legal size white ledgers, I mean,
If I,
rather than leaving a blank, even if you put a standard reflected weight of the date requested, would make more sense than leaving a blank line. I mean, it's not filling the blank, it's, you're
no,
paying for
it
what
would
you're
be-
asking for.
It would be the actual cost.
Well, and that's, I guess, what I would like to see reflected is something that says actual cost rather than a blank.
Postage at going rate,
That would,
because if it changes.
Yeah, because we've got the December money it's not on there, so that's only $15.75, plus a $430 check. Those aren't in there, so
Well,
we got about
let me-
$2,000 left.
You know, if he's able to work well in East Bay and he becomes highly
And
recommended.
Garfield.
And he works in Garfield, and he becomes highly recommended. If there's a problem, it's in here with him and the two of you, and you guys sort it out. I don't spend any more money, $30 an hour is a person that's a CPA, not a CPA, with his experience, figure it out, just get it.
Well, figuring it out, can that mean that we could have anybody, or do we have to have the person that you're saying we have to have?
I didn't say you had to have
That's
him.
my question. That's my
What?
question, Gordy. When you say figure it out, do you mean we have to figure it out with Dennis, or we just figure it out with anybody?
My take, if you can get somebody at the same hourly rate, with the same credentials, and we finish with the same credentials, that understands fund balance and has experience, get the resume, and if we can find somebody else, shoot the lock off.
Well,
But in the
then
meantime, sort it out.
okay. Wow.
Okay. We gotta discuss that.
So we're not gonna make a motion whether there's not gonna be anything?
I guess I would make the motion that we table it at this time to be revisited in 90 days or less with either a recommendation for replacement or steps to show that you guys have worked out the issues and now the reports are, communication's working, or that we dissolve it because it's not working, period.
If Dennis continues to refuse to talk to me, do I have to have those parameters where it's gotta be a CPA for $30 an hour that knows fund balance?
He's technically not a CPA. He was, so
Right.
I would be fine with someone who was, but technically isn't right now. I mean, they've got the same skill set, or can show that they have that same skill set.
We do have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
What is the motion?
That 90 days we revisit this, and they've
Okay.
either got it worked out or she's got a recommendation for replacement.
I second that.
Okay. Any other questions? Doug?
Yes, I see over the next 2 months, we're gonna see the same thing, results as what we've had. There's gonna be a difference in.
I think the
Because
biggest
it
difference is,
doesn't- just a second, Paul. If I recall from last month's letter we received, that Dennis was out in Vegas and hadn't really looked at anything that Connie had sent him, and just said it was fine, it was good. He might do the same thing for the next 2 months, so we better plan on the same.
do you want to tighten it up? Is that what you're thinking? Maybe 30 days, maybe next board meeting?
I would take with a grain of salt a lot of what you're hearing. There's a lot of accusations, comments, back and forth.
I'm just saying what I've read is from the reports I've seen, Gordy. You can take it with a grain of salt, I don't really care.
Okay, what's your proposal?
I'm just saying that if we pass this, then you better plan on, there could be some differences in the two balances
The next 3 months.
at the next, that's
It's
right.
not that tough. Okay. We're only off by 7,000 this time. It's a far cry from what we were off before. So we're making progress. Let's give it another month or two.
And as far as the guy having a CPA's license that you'd have to find out, if you've got somebody that doesn't have it but has all the skill sets, what's the difference?
I think I put that in the motion, yeah. I'm fine with if we amend it to, I think 30 days is too short. I mean, you gotta give yourself a month to try to work things out. So 60 days. Within the next 2 meetings, if we're still having the same issues, then
Is there
would you
any-
agree with 60
Okay,
days
60
instead of?
days.
That's fine.
And I can back and forth and go over it all sorted out.
There we go.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other question? I'm going to call for a roll call vote.
White,
Yes.
Solinger,
Yes.
Collette,
Yes.
Guy,
Yes.
Lapointe,
Yep.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next item. Was item 5, response. Gordy, I think that's yours.
Who? Where are we?
You had an addition, you added.
Response to letter.
Oh, yes. I've got a document, I've got some copies here someplace, I'll pass out after I read this. I've got a response to the demand to cease and desist making defamatory statements. Letter that was presented to me and a couple other board members at the last meeting, an attorney on behalf of County Collette.
I'm not sure this is appropriate.
Well,
This
wait
was
a minute.
This was not to the board. This was an individual to individual. I handed it to you, we did not speak about it. I am represented by counsel, I'm not sure we can discuss this.
Well, I'm not discussing, I'm just going to read some, I'm not asking for discussion. It was presented and it's in the record, it's in the minutes of the meeting, it's on the record. So I think I have every right.
It was done at public comment, so maybe if you want to do it at public comment.
Okay, I'll do it. It was done at the beginning, okay, whenever.
It was open public comment at the time.
Okay.
If you wanna do it at public comment, that's fine.
If you feel more comfortable.
I would because it is an individual issue now, not necessarily a board issue, although it resolves around it.
Yeah, it's-
Okay. Thank you. Last item's old business, resolution regarding deposits. Ready?
What did you say?
Resolution regarding deposits
And,
per unit.
oh, for me. At the last board meeting, as you recall, there was a couple resolutions that were presented. And the only remaining one is a resolution that was prepared that said, in essence, that receipts would be deposited within 2 days, within 2 business days of receipt at the bank. And as I recall, in the attorney's letter from Connie Collette, the attorney raised a question regarding the legality of that. He suggested we seek legal counsel before we vote on that. Mr. Jocks did a review of the Michigan Codified Law, and I assume you've all read the document, which says, in fact, the board can, in some cases shall, have a resolution to that effect. And it also states in here that the guidelines, the accounting guidelines presented by the Treasurer's Office, State of Michigan, has a number of procedures and discusses that also. So he's saying from his standpoint, not that we should or shouldn't do it, but we legally can do it. Is that so that's where we are today. I think Paul raised a question.
That's an accurate representation of my legal opinion as requested by this board on the December 3rd, I think.
And there's a memo to that.
And there's a memo to that effect, as I stated out for that.
So that's where we stand. There's a resolution to do that. And I guess now that the treasurer knows that it's not illegal, I certainly would want to have a resolution that is illegal. But now that she's aware that's not an illegal resolution, I guess the question is, do you have an objection to that, to the resolution as restated? I believe Jeff cleaned it up with some more whereases.
I did.
And states in essence, the Treasurer's Office will, after you get through all the whereases, it says, the Treasurer's Office will deposit all receipts in the local bank within 2 business days of receipt unless extenuating circumstances exist that would prevent deposits that day. In such a case, deposit shall be made as soon as possible thereafter.
First of all, it would have been nice if you talked to me about wanting to do some changes to my procedures.
You were on sick leave at the time, sorry.
Well, I'm on sick leave, so you ram a resolution, that makes sense. But anyway, I just want the board and everybody to know, my deputy and I are completely conscious of trying to getting checks and deposits into the bank as fast as we possibly can. We have never lost interest. We have never not dispersed the amount of money that has come in. There's absolutely no reason to do this. There's never been a problem. The reason a board would have to pass a resolution like this, I can see, and I can see why it should be able to be done, is if the treasurer is throwing checks in the drawer, not showing up, if deposits aren't being made, interest is being lost, of course the board needs to come in. But that's not the case. We are making deposits as fast as we possibly can. It will never be in 2 days. It can't be within 2 days unless I lighten up on our cash policies. My cash policy, which has been in place for 10 years, gives the flow of how it works. It provides checks and balances. It provides segregation of duties. It includes Nancy, the deputy, and myself to be able to track it. If we loosen that up, we can set ourselves up for misappropriation of funds, or in other words, embezzlement. Right now, this is near perfect. No one can, there's 2 people that always track money. So when the money comes in the door, it can take 2 days to just get through the process before it even gets to the bank. Then we also have Wednesdays where we can't make deposits at this point. The other question I have with it is, what date are you going to use as the target date? The date of the check? The date of the postmark? The date that Nancy does her log? The date that it comes into the treasurer's office? What date? Then the second part of it is, who's going to police this? How do you know when the 2 days are up? And anything that's, there could be holidays in there, it can take a week for the process. Here's another example. Let's say a taxpayer is paying their summer taxes in November. Their check is dated November 30th. The postmark is November 30th. It comes in the mail in here December 3rd. We can't say it was December 3rd and then have Nancy's report say December 3rd, comes into the treasurer's office December 4th, gets to the bank on December 5th, because they'll have interest and penalty. So we have to record that check as coming in our office November 30th. By the time it gets to Nancy, we've already spent 4 days. So how do you police this?
That's your problem. It says in here, now it just says, you talk about vacations, or excuse me, you talk about holidays, it says 2 business days, so take that excuse off the table. And it also says 2 business days of receipt, from the time we receive it. Somebody comes in here, drops off the check, and I don't know, it's, I guess Nancy receives it, you receive it, your clerk receives it. 2 days of receipt. I mean, it's kind of straightforward. Now,
Well, okay, here's another thing. On the last day of summer taxes, which we collect about between 3,500 and 4,000 checks, on the last day, we receive 50% of those. So you're telling me that 2,000 checks have to be processed by Karen and myself in 2 days. That's impossible.
I'm not going to argue with the numbers.
But why, what's the purpose of doing this?
But
Why are you trying to do this?
the purpose is, I receive, and I don't pay the tax bills, my wife does, so I don't check it or whatever. And I don't know that many people that would communicate with me. I got 2 emails, one of which I passed on to you, about a person complaining how weeks had gone by, and I'll read the email here that I sent to you with your response.
I know, that's how all this started back in September, all of this. Started from that one email.
I got 2. Now, I didn't go polling.
You gave me one person out of 4,000.
Well,
So that's why you're, that's why
well,
this is.
no, you know, I sent you that, and I'm not gonna read the email, it goes on about, when you respond to the call, 2
And that's-
weeks, yada, yada.
yeah.
Maybe that was the anomaly, maybe that was,
Well, that was the catalyst for everything that's happened.
well, let me just, what your response was. You said, I do agree, we have a problem with processing that should not exist. So in one case, let me just finish, in one case you say everything is just running smoothly. And I think in your one statement that you handed out last week, you said you process everything within days. Well, in here, you go on and you give this litany of, I agree with everyone. This way does not work. So you told me in your email response when I forwarded that email to you, that was rather lengthy from this individual. First, I've only met once in my life. I've had a piece of property for 10 years. I took the time to write a lengthy email, how she sent it in, she called, and the return call, finally got a hold of the clerk, said no, it had. And I don't know if
And
that's,
I
I'm just,
yeah, but you know,
so I'm just saying, I don't know if that's, if I just happen to get the 2 people, the only 2 people that had a problem, maybe that's the case. But you agreed, Connie.
and I looked into that. I took you very seriously, Gordy. I said, this sounds like a problem, let me look into it. I looked into it. We have got a system that is very good and it works very well. So I don't know if creating a board resolution to say that deposits have to be done in 2 days is the answer that you need.
In 3 days, would you be comfortable with 3 days?
But if it goes contrary to my policy, it won't be able to be enforced. It can't be enforced. So then you're asking me to choose between sloppy processes and making sure that I follow a board resolution. That's a tough place to put me in.
I'm not ready to agree that trying to do something in 3 days, within 3 business days of receipt, will necessarily
We're
create
not a
a
retail,
sloppy.
we're not a retail company like a point of sale Towns. You can't do it the same way. We have a process that we have to go through. It works, it's been working for 10 years. It's never been a problem. never been a problem.
Let me ask,
Nancy has more to do, and the check packs are getting to be much later than last season.
And that wasn't, you know what, I checked into that. We processed 300 more in one day than we did the previous year. We cut it by 2 days and processed 300 more. I looked into this, Gordy. I took you seriously, I looked into this, and I don't believe we should change anything. It is a good system.
Well, some of the residents don't agree.
Well, they
And
can
that's-
pay by credit card now. I did that in spite of all of the challenges I was put in front of me. Credit card processing is done online, lookup is done. We have streamlined it as much as we possibly can. I am not going to compromise a cash policy that can cause embezzlement to make you happy because you've got one complaint.
let me ask a question, if you don't mind, Gordy, please. If you would look at today, your policy, I looked at it. What do you think the average of receipt to?
Well, it
Is
depends.
is there an average, not the actual, just an average?
Well, I can't answer that because
Okay.
during April, May, June, hardly anything. September 16th, December 31st, February 14th, February
During tax
28th,
season, which is-
mass.
So
You
in
can't
that-
do that.
But, so let me ask you differently. Because I agree with what you're saying, during the non-tax season, it is a different cycle. But during the tax season, is there a window? Not that, this is right, I'm just asking, what do you think the average window is during the tax
Well,
season?
it grows and it swells. I mean, you can have it kind of regularly in like the first month of December, whatever. The last week of December, we thought we'd be slammed. We weren't. I can't answer that. I have to say, this is working. There's no reason to change it. Why do you think you need to?
Well, some people-
One complaint
No.
from his neighbor.
No, it isn't.
Is that enough to change, to put a resolution together? Out of 4, look, we have processed, since I've been here, nearly 10,000 checks, and you're talking about one.
No. Let me just rephrase what I said.
You gave me one,
You want me to send you another one?
so that's 2.
Yeah, but I don't think everyone who knows me is gonna, if they have a question, they're gonna send me an email. I mean, I was surprised. I don't know what that process is. I was shocked. She took the time to write a
How long
lengthy.
did your check take to clear? You just came in the other day.
2-3 days.
Let me just restate something.
Anybody here pay their taxes?
Let me just, when I sent you this, it could have been, it very well could have been a one-up. The only person in the township that had, the thing took 2 weeks and they had this problem and there was the follow-up, yada, yada. But when you responded saying, Nancy has more to do and the check packs are going to be much later than last season. I agree with everyone. This does not work. I do agree we have a problem with processing. I assumed this wasn't just 1 or 2. I mean,
I looked into it, or could I just repeat myself? I looked into it, the process works.
We have a policy for escrow accounts where we've got 30 days to bill them, they've got 30 days to pay us. A lot of that is because of those processes. On a busy tax day, you get a check here in the office. Do you think 10 days on a busiest tax day of the year would be reasonable to get it through this process and your process?
Then, yeah.
So if we said 10 business days within, that would make sense and it would cover this so that it's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, why? But
Here's,
the thing is, I have to collect within 2 weeks' time and distribute all the taxes collected to the county, to Beta, to the library. That's my accountability, and I get them in and I get them done. I don't need, why does this have to happen? That's the accountability. I have to get the taxes in and out within 2 weeks. I have to. And then with interest, anything that's interest-bearing, that goes in right away. There isn't a problem that needs to be fixed.
I guess, I'm wondering, the person that sent you the letter, Gordy, what's the problem?
the problem is, there's penalties to pay if their check isn't received. So they keep an eye on it. I mailed my check in.
They don't get a penalty.
They don't get a
They don't get a
penalty.
penalty. They get, if their check is dated, we go by postmark date or the date it walks in, they don't get a penalty.
They send the check in, for whatever reason, it's lost, it's whatever. They're anxious to make sure they're living downstate, they mail it in, they want to know it was received and processed. Now, I don't question this person.
I have now implemented online tax lookup. They can look it up and see. That is the new process I've done because of this. So they can look up their taxes and see that it's paid. They can do that. They can pay by credit card.
Well,
They
let me
can do that.
ask this, maybe we do it a different way. Can you, if I have a concern, and some residents have expressed a concern that these aren't being processed in a timely manner,
Please keep
Yeah.
it one conversation.
perhaps you, I don't know if your
Ask them to
system.
call me. Ask them to call me. Just
No,
ask
no,
them to
no.
call me.
If your system produces a report that tells you, gives you this, are we processing in 2 days, 10 days, what is it? All I know is the two people that complained to me, and I've heard comments from others, that they weren't being processed on time. And, you know, I didn't go out and solicit these things, they came to me out of the blue, and I passed the one on to you. that was
Karen and
most-
I aren't hanging around not doing our job. That's ridiculous to think that. We are diligent, we are doing things as fast as possible. To do this resolution.
And why not have what's the problem with having a resolution? Let's bump it up to 3 days. If you're that confident everything's being done, then I can pass on this person.
Okay,
Yeah,
how are you gonna police it? Who's gonna monitor it?
I'm gonna trust you.
So we're gonna pass this resolution and that's
There's
that.
lots of resolutions that you don't go in, there's ordinances on signs, you don't go out there every day and police them. What,
So you wanna put a resolution in place that's unpoliced, that I could end up, so you could come back at any time and, why? Why? I'm not getting why.
Let me offer this suggestion. Two things I have to comment. I know Gordy has an example. I can tell you that there was many times we got calls by people, and people stopped in and billed for pay. We have changed things. We put the BSNA thing in now, we've got this. What I'd like to suggest, that we look at, this tax code and see how that outcome of this tax cycle is. We have till February 14th.
28th.
Um,
We collect-
What's on the bill, though, I'm talking about, I say the
No,
14th.
28th is the last day they can pay.
They can pay it. Okay, I was just quoting what the
Yeah,
bill said.
they're just penalized between those 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. Between now and then, we start about 2 months with the collection. If we go through 2 months of collection, and we don't get a lot of complaints of income, you always can get a little, but a lot. Because we get them up here, I know Nancy's taking them, I've taken them, I bet Kathy's taken them, for people walk, you know, I can see, whatever that's their perception. I don't look at what they look at, so I have to take their perception. If we go in that period, what I'm saying, that would tell me maybe we don't need this. And we ought to give it time in this cycle to look at.
The other thing that we
Is
have
that a
changed,
fair direction from your
Yeah.
perspective?
but I just want to also, the other thing we've changed is when they come in the door, they don't go to Nancy anymore, they go directly to us. So that I've changed too,
okay.
When? Because she's still taking checks.
right?
Well, I still take
But with
checks.
walk-ins. Walk-ins go right to us.
No?
On the tax day.
Only
day-
on the
It's only on the tax day.
But that's the day that we get overloaded.
Yeah,
That's the day we
yeah,
get
I'm just trying to-
overloaded.
yeah.
Otherwise, we can keep up.
Because we've taken.
No, that's
stack
fine.
up.
If we want to wait till after this tax season, then I'm okay with
If we
that.
get a lot of complaints, I think it's worth us asking, is there something you need? Is that
Fine.
fair with everybody? I mean, we can talk this thing to death, there's all kinds of different things. We've implemented change, there is policy we have to comply with, we have to listen to what our clients tell us, which is the
If-
public.
If this comes back before me, I would like to see the policy that you're referring to in comparison. I'll tell you that right now. Because what you're telling me is you have something similar to this in place that covers this.
It's been in place
That,
for 10 years.
so I would like to be able to look at both of them side by side before I make a decision. Because looking at this, I was ready to say within 10 days and boom, be done with it. Because that would make sense to me. I want to see that before I do that though.
Yeah, because this provides checks and balances
Right, which,
and segregation of
Are
duties, which
obviously needed.
is supersedes speed.
right, right.
I would love to get a discussion with this checks and balances and processes at some other point, not to do it here in front of this.
I think, so I would like to at least table this till after the tax cycle.
And then I will submit
If you'd send that out, that would give everybody a chance to look at it.
I don't wanna see it unless this comes back before me.
Oh, that's different, okay. You don't want to see it ahead of time.
If this comes before me again, if this is gonna be a part of our packet, I want that included as well. Otherwise, that's what we're using and that works. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are we tabling it, Mr. Chairman?
We have two choices, we can table it.
I make a
So then-
motion to table it until after tax season is discussed.
Okay,
I
I
just
just,
will be coming back at us.
If necessary, to come back before us after tax season.
then,
I'll second.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign? Okay. Thank you. That's the last item of old business. I can start now with public comment. Anybody from the audience first? Hearing none from the audience, anybody from the board?
Okay, I'm gonna read this and make sure I get the words exactly right. At the December 3rd, 2013 Acme Township Board meeting, I and several other Acme board members were served with a letter from the attorney representing County Collette, Acme Township Treasurer, to cease and desist making defamatory statements. Although I'd like to put the issues of the past 2 months behind us and move on to more productive issues, I feel that I must respond to several false and erroneous allegations made by Ms. Collette, not only in the letter from her attorney, but also in her comments published in the record. A little bit of background, this will only take a minute. At the October 1st Acme Board meeting, the treasurer, without prior warning and little explanation, presented her treasurer's report indicating that as of August 31st, there was only $20,000. Then when the treasurer, with little notice, failed to appear at the special board meeting on October 22nd, this was 3 weeks after the original board meeting, I had even more reasons for concern. And I strongly expressed those concerns at that meeting. 2 months later, at the December board meeting, the treasurer presented a new report indicating that the true balance of restricted funds was almost $200,000, and not the $20,000 that was originally reported in October, which caused all the, oh my God, what's going on? To this day, I still do not fully understand how the treasurer was able to present a report with such a large discrepancy. The treasurer seemingly laid blame for this discrepancy at everyone's doorstep their own. But at the end of the day, it is the treasurer's report with her signature which was presented to the board. That's the end of the background. The cease and desist letter. The letter I received from the treasurer's attorney stated that I, quote, made false statements to members of the community and at township board meetings concerning my client's performance of her duties, unquote. I have gone back and listened to the tapes of the board meetings in question, and I stand behind every single statement that I made. The statements may have been very critical, but there is a big difference between critical statements and the false statements that Ms. Collette claimed I made. As far as the claim of false statements made to the community, I do not know how one addresses such a nebulous accusation. The letter further claims that 3 days after the October board meeting, on October 4th, I met with 3 others. And apparently, as a result of that meeting, quote, knew full well the truth of the confusion over the August balance in the general ledger. The only thing I can say is that Ms. Collette and her attorney need to recheck their sources, because according to my calendar, I attended no such meeting on October 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, etc. In fact, the accountant, one of the key parties in that supposed meeting on October 4th, was out of town through mid-October. So no meeting took place I was accused of attending where I was made totally aware of what the situation was. The letter goes on further to state, this is from the attorney, quote, "From October 4th on that I, meaning me, was fully aware of the reasons for the error on the August Treasurer's report. Supposedly I learned all this information in the October 4th meeting that never took place. I can assure you that on October 4th, and for several weeks thereafter, I was still under the impression that the unrestricted fund balance had somehow mysteriously shrunk to $20,000. In fact, so did the treasurer, as evidenced by an email she sent on October 9th, where she maintained that the dramatic drop in the unrestricted fund to $20,000 was correct. Her comments in that email said, "I have discovered that this happens every year, so it's nothing new. It always happens." And quote, "It would indicate that we are spending too much money." So well after the supposed October 4th meeting where I was totally aware of what was going on, everybody, including myself, was still thinking that it was the 20,000. So that was an accusation in this letter. And finally, in a front page article in the Record Eagle, Ms. Collette, quote from the paper, alleged members of the board are attempting to use the error against her to usurp her authority, citing 2 proposed policy changes. This, I assume, is in reference to a resolution that I submitted to the board establishing the frequency by which bank deposits will be made by the treasurer's office. Last page. The only thing I can say is that the law is very clear, as we now have been informed by counsel in this matter. And if Ms. Collette had indeed read Michigan Codified Law 41.77, which she references several times, she certainly should have known that the proposed resolution did not usurp her authority as she claimed. In fact, Ms. Collette had received an email from the Michigan Township Association on November 26th, which states in part, the township can adopt a policy on frequency deposits. So in that case, she was claiming that I was usurping her authority, which was incorrect. And she should have known it because she queried and she supplied you that email, she queried the Michigan Township Association and said, no, the township board has the authority to do that. In summary, I find the letter from Ms. Collette's attorney to be full of false and misleading accusations. In my opinion, the attorney's concluding comment, should you continue to make these statements, my client will not hesitate to take further action. It is nothing more than an attempt to intimidate members of this board on behalf of her client. I was elected as an individual. I'm not a member of a team per se. People that voted for me, those who made an intelligent vote by knowing what I stood for, if they ever attended previous board meetings, knew that I was very outspoken. And I will continue to be outspoken. If I think something is incorrect, and Paul can attest to this at previous board meetings, I was very active attending meetings and was very critical and spoke my mind. I will continue to do that. And if somebody wants to misconstrue criticism as misstatements or lies, then I think they have the problem. But again, I'll say I stand behind everything I've said, and the things that I focus on more than anything else is the money that this township handles. And that's probably the reason why I ran for office. The previous board, in my opinion, did a lot of great things, but it was loose in many ways with the finances on things that I voice opinions on. And if nobody thought I wasn't gonna be the same way with this board, they'd be sorely mistaken. So, that's my position, and I'm just assured, Ms. Collette, I'm not intimidated by a letter from some attorney that sent me it appears obviously a form letter.
Is there any other public comments on the board? Otherwise, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.